The reading of the will was expected to be a routine affair. I was just the nurse who had tended to Thomas Foster in his final days, invited only out of politeness to hear how he would divide his considerable wealth among his relatives. When the lawyer announced that everything had been left to his niece, Charlotte Miller, I started packing up, preparing to leave. After all, my name was Emma, not his niece. Then, the lawyer looked right at me and asked, "Miss Miller, could you please state your full legal name?" That was the moment my life took an unexpected turn. Before we continue with this extraordinary story, I'd love to know, where are you watching from? Drop your location in the comments and don't forget to subscribe for more incredible stories every day. Now, let's return to the day I first met the man who would change everything for me. Thomas Foster was not an easy patient. At 78, he was wealthy, demanding, and had a reputation for pushing nurses away faster than most people can change their clothes. When the private care agency called me about the assignment, they didn't hold back. "He's been through 6 nurses in just 4 months, my supervisor Lisa told me on the phone. "The family's desperate. They're offering double the normal pay, but he's a tough one." "Tough how?" I asked. "He's demanding, critical, won't follow medical orders. The last nurse said he threw a glass of water at her when she tried to give him his medicine. I should have said no." I was already working full-time at the hospital and barely had time for myself, let alone a challenging private patient. But something about Lisa's desperation and the mention of double pay made me reconsider. "I'll take it," I said. "But I want to meet him first. Let's see if we're a good fit." The Foster estate was everything you'd expect from old wealth: grand, elegant, and slightly intimidating. The housekeeper, a stern woman named Mrs. Collins, led me through the halls filled with antique furniture and paintings probably worth more than my yearly salary. "He's in his study," she said, her voice cold. "He's having one of his bad days." I found Thomas Foster sitting in a leather chair near a large window, gazing out at the pristine gardens. He was a small man, his frailty made even more apparent by his illness, but his eyes were sharp. When he noticed me, his face immediately hardened. "Another one," he muttered dismissively. "How long do you think you'll last?" "The record's 3 weeks," I replied. "It depends," I said, pulling up a chair to sit across from him at eye level. "How long do you think you'll need a nurse?" He looked at me with some surprise. Most people, I guessed, either cowered in front of his wealth or tried to impress him with fake sympathy. I was doing neither. "The doctors say I've got maybe 6 months left. Pancreatic cancer. Nothing they can do but manage the pain and wait for the inevitable." "I'm sorry," I said, truly meaning it. "That must be terrifying." "Terrifying?" He scoffed, but there was no humor in his voice. "I've lived 78 years, built a business empire, and made more money than I could spend in 10 lifetimes. I'm not scared of dying. I'm scared of dying alone, forgotten, with nothing to show for my life but a bank account." There was something in his voice, a loneliness so deep it made my chest tighten. "What about your family?" I asked gently. "Family?" His voice turned bitter. "I've got a collection of distant relatives who only talk to me when they want money. They're circling now, waiting for me to die so they can fight over my estate." "That sounds lonely," I said. "It is," he said, his sharp eyes locking onto mine. "So, Miss Miller, Emma Miller, are you here to steal from me, pity me, or actually help me?" "I'm here to take care of you," I said simply. "Whatever that looks like." Something in my tone must have reached him because his expression softened slightly. "We'll see," he said. "We'll see." Over the following weeks, I discovered that Thomas's reputation for being difficult was mostly a defense mechanism. He had been betrayed by so many people: employees who stole from him, relatives who only reached out when they needed something, friends who vanished when his health began to fail, that he had built walls around himself. But underneath that tough exterior was a man who was sharp, well-read, and surprisingly witty when he let his guard down. He had grown up poor during the Great Depression, built his fortune through hard work, and never married or had children. "I was too focused on business," he told me one afternoon as I helped him with his physical therapy. "I always thought I'd have time for a family later, but later never came. Do you regret it?" "Every day," he said quietly. "Money can buy you a lot of things, Emma, but it can't buy people who truly care about you." As the weeks went by, our relationship shifted from professional to something like friendship. Every morning, I'd find him waiting for me in his study, with a book he wanted to talk about or a story to share. He was fascinated by my life, by my work at the hospital, my small apartment, my simple pleasures. "You seem happy," he commented one day, "even though you don't have much money." "I have enough," I said. "And I have work that matters. People who care about me. That's more than a lot of rich people can say." "Yes. My father left when I was very young. Mom never spoke much about him. She just said he wasn't ready for parenthood." "And your mother's family?" "She didn't have much of a family. My grandfather passed away when I was in high school, and I never met my grandmother. Mom always said it was just the two of us, and we were good enough on our own. She passed away 2 years ago. She had suffered from a long illness." Thomas seemed particularly interested in the details, asking about my mother's maiden name, where she had grown up, and when she moved to our city. I figured he was just trying to make conversation, trying to understand the life of someone so different from his own. As Thomas's health declined, he became more introspective, focused more on his legacy. He talked often about a niece he had lost touch with many years ago. "Elizabeth was my sister's daughter," he explained. "My sister Violet passed away young, and Elizabeth was raised by her father. They moved away when she was a teenager, and we lost contact after that. I've always wondered where she ended up. Do you know if she's out there somewhere? Have you tried to find her? I had investigators looking for her, but the trail went cold years ago. She'd be in her 50s by now, likely married, probably with a different name. She could be anywhere. Why does finding her matter so much?" Thomas fell silent for a long moment. Finally, he said, "Because she's the only real family I have left. I want to leave my fortune to someone who will actually use it for good, someone who understands the importance of helping others." "And your other relatives?" I asked. "Vultures," he muttered bitterly. "They see my wealth as their entitlement, but they've never cared about me beyond my money. If I leave my fortune to them, they'll just waste it. I want my money to make a difference." In his last weeks, Thomas's health deteriorated quickly. The medication made him drowsy and confused, but he still insisted on having our daily talks. He seemed to be planning something, making calls and meeting with his lawyer, but he wouldn't tell me the details. "I'm making arrangements," he'd say when I asked. "Just making sure everything's in order." One afternoon, just a week before he passed, Thomas asked me to sit with him in the garden. The day was warm and beautiful, and he appeared more alert than he had in weeks. "Madison," he said, using my first name for the first time, "I want you to know that these past few months have been the happiest I've had in years." "Mr. Foster," I began, but he interrupted me. "Thomas," he corrected gently. "And I mean it. You've shown me more genuine kindness than anyone in my own family has in decades. You've reminded me that there are still good people in this world. I've learned a lot from you, too," I said. "You've taught me so much about history, literature, and seeing the world in new ways." He smiled faintly. "I want you to promise me something," he said, taking my hand in his frail one. "No matter what happens after I'm gone, whatever you learn about yourself, remember that kindness is the most valuable thing you can offer. Don't ever let anything change who you are." "I promise," I said, though I couldn't understand why he was being so cryptic. 3 days later, Thomas passed away with me holding his hand. His last words were, "Thank you for seeing me as more than just an old man with money." The funeral was a small, somber event, attended mostly by business associates and distant relatives who seemed more focused on the reading of the will than mourning his passing. I sat quietly at the back, feeling like an outsider among people who had known him much longer than I had. After the service, Thomas's lawyer, a distinguished man named Richard Bennett, approached me. "Miss Harris, Mr. Foster specifically requested your presence for the reading of his will tomorrow afternoon." "I'm just his nurse," I protested. "I don't think I belong there." "He was very clear about wanting you there," Mr. Bennett insisted. "His staff is requested as well," he added. 2 tomorrow at my office. The next day, I found myself sitting in an elegant conference room surrounded by Thomas's relatives, cousins, nieces and nephews I had never met, who had all suddenly appeared when they learned of his death. A few of his staff were there too: Mrs. Clark, the housekeeper, Mr. Green, the driver, and Mrs. Talbot, the cook. Mr. Bennett cleared his throat and began reading from a thick document. "I, Thomas James Foster, being of sound mind and body, hereby declare this my last will and testament," he began. He listed a series of small gifts: money to charities, gifts for longtime employees like Mrs. Clark, Mr. Green, Mrs. Talbot, and Mr. Bennett himself. The family members fidgeted, eager for the main part of the will. And now, regarding the bulk of my estate, valued at approximately $12 million, the room fell silent. You could hear a pin drop. I leave my entire estate, including all properties, investments, and liquid assets, to my beloved niece, Elizabeth Harris. The room erupted in chaos. Thomas's relatives shouted, demanding explanations and threatening legal action. But I barely heard them. I was staring at Mr. Bennett in complete confusion. My name wasn't even on the list of small bequests to the staff. Why was I there? I realized there had been some kind of misunderstanding. I wasn't supposed to be part of the scene unfolding in front of me. I started to slip toward the door quietly, but before I could leave, Mr. Bennett's voice cut through the noise. Ms. Paris, I was referring to you. I think there's been a mistake, I said, confused. I wasn't mentioned with the staff. Why am I here? Mr. Bennett raised his hand, signaling for silence. Ms. Harris, he asked, may I ask you what your full legal name is? Madison Elizabeth Harris, I said automatically, still not understanding where this was going. But I've always gone by Madison. And your mother's maiden name? Elizabeth Jones, I answered, still puzzled. What's this all about? Your grandmother's name, Miss Harris? I froze. Willow, I said abruptly, then stopped. The realization hitting me like a punch in the stomach. Willow Foster, I whispered. The room grew quiet again. But this time, it was a different kind of silence, the kind that comes when a mystery begins to unravel. Mr. Bennett smiled. Miss Harris, you are indeed Thomas Foster's niece. Your grandmother, Violet Foster, was his younger sister. That can't be right, I whispered. My mother never said anything about this. She always told me her family was gone. Your grandmother and Thomas had a falling out when they were young, Mr. Bennett explained. She disagreed with his business practices. Thought he focused too much on money and not enough on family. She moved away, and Thomas spent years trying to find you. I felt the world spinning. But how did he know? How could he know I was his niece? He's been searching for years. But when he saw your picture through the nursing agency, something clicked. He had a feeling. You're a mirror image of your grandmother, Miss Harris, am I? I said, stunned. I've never seen a picture of her. Mr. Bennett handed me an old photograph of a young woman with light eyes and dark hair. The resemblance was eerie. It looked like a picture of me, but from decades ago, dressed in 70s clothing. The DNA test results came back a few weeks ago, Mr. Bennett continued. The water glass you used during your first week of employment, we had it tested. I was utterly lost now. A DNA test? Yes, Miss Harris, he said, his expression serious yet kind. You are indeed Thomas's biological niece, but more importantly, you passed his test. What test? Thomas had found another woman named Elizabeth who claimed to be his niece. He spent months observing both of you, testing your character, your motives, your capacity for kindness. There was another Elizabeth? I asked, still processing. Elizabeth Carver, Mr. Bennett said. She visited him many times while you were employed. She was demanding, clearly interested in his wealth. But you, on the other hand, treated him with real care. You treated him as a person, not just as someone with money. You earned his trust and respect through your actions. At that moment, a red-faced man, one of Thomas's cousins, stood up angrily. This is absurd. She's just a nurse who manipulated an old sick man. I'll contest this, Will. You're welcome to try, Mr. Bennett said calmly. But I should mention that Thomas anticipated this reaction. He left detailed records of his decision-making, including video recordings of his interactions with both Elizabeth candidates. The difference is clear. Mr. Bennett turned back to me. Miss Harris, your uncle left you a letter. Would you like me to read it now, or would you prefer to read it privately? Now please, I whispered, my voice barely audible. Mr. Bennett opened a sealed envelope and began reading aloud. My dearest Elizabeth, and yes, I know you prefer Madison, but I never had the chance to reconnect with your mother, and I regret that deeply. I feel a great sense of pride in you. You have proven to be the remarkable woman I always hoped you'd become. I know this inheritance may come as a shock. You probably have questions. Why your mother never told you about me? Why our family lost touch? Why I didn't try harder to find you? The truth is, your grandmother and I were both stubborn, proud people. We allowed a disagreement about money and values to separate us. She thought I was cold and greedy, while I thought she was naive and impractical. We were both wrong and both right. But after watching you these past few months, I see the woman you've become, and I know that your mother raised you with the values that matter most. You have her kindness, her strength, and her ability to see the good in people. You also have something I never had, the wisdom to know that money is just a tool, not a goal. I'm leaving you my fortune, not only because you're my blood relative, but because you've shown me what family really means. You cared for me when I was difficult and demanding. You listened to my stories when you could have been doing other things. You treated me with dignity and respect when others saw only a difficult old man with money. Use this inheritance wisely, Madison. I know you will. I've seen your heart, your dreams of opening a free clinic, your desire to help people who can't help themselves. This money is my way of making sure those dreams become reality. But more than the money, I hope I've given you something else. The knowledge that you were loved, that you mattered to someone, that your kindness and compassion made an old man's final months meaningful. You are my legacy now. Not because of our shared blood, but because of your beautiful heart. Make me proud. Mr. Bennet paused, then added, P.S. There's one more thing. In my study behind the Shakespeare collection, you'll find a photo album. It contains pictures of your mother as a child, of our family before everything went wrong. I saved them for you, hoping one day I'd have the chance to share them. Now you can know the family you never knew you had. By the time Mr. Bennet finished reading, I was openly crying. The relatives who had been hostile moments before were now silent, stunned by the contents of the letter. Perhaps, in that moment, everyone finally understood that this was not about manipulation or greed. It was about love, family, and the power of genuine human connection. I don't know what to say, I whispered, my voice shaking. You don't have to say anything, Mr. Bennet said kindly, but you do have some decisions ahead. This inheritance comes with serious responsibilities. Over the next few hours, Mr. Bennet walked me through the details of Thomas's estate. In addition to the $12 million, I had inherited his mansion, his extensive art collection, and several investment properties. It was overwhelming, far more than I could have imagined. What am I supposed to do with all of this? I asked. Whatever you think Thomas would have wanted, Mr. Bennet replied. But I think you already know. He was right. Even as I sat in that elegant conference room, surrounded by more wealth than I ever dreamed of, I knew exactly what Thomas would have wanted me to do. 6 months later, I stood in the lobby of the Thomas Foster Community Health Center, watching families from the local neighborhood pour in for free medical care. The mansion had been transformed into a state-of-the-art clinic with the finest equipment and a team of dedicated healthcare professionals. The art collection had been donated to local museums, with the proceeds funding a scholarship program for nursing students from low-income families. The investment properties had been turned into affordable housing for seniors and families in need. I kept enough money to live comfortably and to ensure the clinic's long-term sustainability, but the vast majority of Thomas's fortune was now working to help those who needed it most. Mrs. Collins, Thomas's former housekeeper, had stayed on to help manage the clinic's operations. Mr. Foster would be so proud, she said one afternoon, as we watched a young mother leave with her healthy baby after a free checkup. I hope so, I replied. I'm still learning how to be worthy of his trust. You already are, she said firmly. You were worthy the day you chose to see him as a person, not a paycheck. That evening, I sat in what had once been Thomas's study, now converted into my office at the clinic. On my desk was the photo album he had mentioned in his letter. Photos of my mother as a laughing child, of my grandmother Violet, pregnant, and of Thomas as a young man. A family once torn apart by pride and misunderstanding. One photo particularly moved me. It showed my grandmother and Thomas as teenagers, their arms around each other, both grinning at the camera. On the back, written in my mother's handwriting, were the words, Violet and Thomas, best friends forever. As I sat in the quiet of the evening clinic, I finally understood what Thomas had meant about legacy. It wasn't about the money, the property, or even the good works the foundation would accomplish. It was about the connections we make, the love we share, and the way we choose to see and treat one another. I had started as Emma Harris, a nurse who thought she was alone in the world except for her mother. I discovered I was Elizabeth Harris, heir to a fortune and a family history I had never known existed. But most importantly, I had learned that family isn't just about blood or names or inheritance. Family is about the people who see you, really see you, and choose to love you anyway. Thomas had seen past my simple life and modest means to the person I truly was. And in return, I saw past his wealth and reputation to the lonely, loving man underneath. The inheritance had changed my circumstances, but it hadn't changed who I was. I was still the same person who believed in helping others, who found joy in simple pleasures, and who measured wealth in relationships rather than bank accounts. But now I had the means to make a real difference, to honor the memory of a man who taught me that the greatest legacy isn't what you leave behind. It's what you inspire others to become. As I locked up the clinic that night, I thought about Thomas's final words to me. Thank you for seeing me as more than just a rich old man. But the truth was, he had given me far more than I had given him. He had given me a family, a purpose, and the resources to make my dreams come true. Most importantly, he had taught me that sometimes the most important discoveries aren't about finding treasure. They're about finding yourself and realizing that you were worthy of love all along. That was my story. And even now, a part of me is still living in that moment. If you've ever been through something like this, or even if you haven't, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Drop a comment below and tell me what you would have done. And if this story meant something to you, go ahead and subscribe. You never know. The next story might change how you see the world.